Hey guys, I am here with Autumn, and she's been a client of ours for about 6 months, and she went from working open to close. Literally within 4 weeks, she was able to get herself out of the business. And in her journey with us, she's been able to bring her food and her labor costs down, saving about 12,000 a week. And now she not only has one location, but she has three locations. So massive changes for Autumn. So Autumn, welcome and thanks for being here today.
Hi, thanks. Excited to be here.
Awesome. So, first question, I want to know what was life like before we met, before you joined the program, like before all that, what was life like for you? What's your day to day look like?
Sure. So, when we started the program about 6 months ago, we had just opened a second location. I was staffing that out, so I was working, open to close, trying to find a team there and training that team. So while also managing, the first location. So, it wasn't a great spot to be in. Financially, we were trying to get our sales off the ground at that location. We had a lot of costs from our main ingredients. We use almond flour, chocolate flour, egg whites, things like that. So ton of costs there that I wasn't keeping an eye on. So they were kind of out of control. So yeah, I mean, this is a great find for a program to get this all in line.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And so you were basically working open to close. You were also managing the construction project because you had another location on the go.
Mhm.
And you're just trying to, and I guess the way that I kind of view it is there's only so many balls that you can juggle at one time. And what
Mhm.
it sounds like is you were just trying to do it all. You told me earlier that, you're the person that always wants to help, always wants to jump in. And so you were covering a lot of shifts. And so walk me through that for a second. What was going on? And then I also want to know how that changed because that's a major change for you.
Sure, yeah. So it was a tough spot. I was if we had any call outs at the first location, I was the first one who got that phone call and I was, kind of jump in, at home. I also have three kids, so we're kind of
Oh,
kind of
wow.
juggling, yeah, juggling that. And I kind of took it as like, yeah, I opened this business. I need to make the sacrifices. I'm just gonna work 80 hours a week. But that as we grew, I was working with Anne. One of the first things she had me do was, to put leadership in these locations. So there should be a line between, me and if someone has a call out or someone's sick or whatever reason, I shouldn't be that first call. So immediately when we did that, I was able to staff the second location pretty quickly. And then the first location, if we had any issues with labor, that manager was hiring and getting the right people in
Yeah.
place. So, that took me from, working in the stores to being able to pretty quickly within the first, I think it was like 4 weeks, not on the schedule at all at either location. So that, I mean, just that is a big improvement from the previous few years.
Yeah, I mean, and this is the thing, right? I hear it all the time. Well, I've got to work 80 hours a week. It's my business. No one's going to be able to do it like I can. I hear this all the time and I'm like, sure, that's one way to run a business, but just because you open up another business doesn't mean you have to work 80 plus hours a week, right? People think that that's what you have to do, but it's not. I mean, it's just this fallacy that people have because it's the only way they know how to do it. And it sounds like you're a perfect example of once you learned a different way to structure things, it didn't take long. And all of a sudden you actually had some time because you've got three businesses, three kids. I mean, that I don't even want to look at your schedule because I'm sure that, it's pretty jam-packed. I guess the thing too, looking at it is you were working on a bunch of stuff. And I guess so in your vantage point, you were working, say, 80 hours a week. And so now you probably still work, a fair amount. But I guess the question I have for you is that what are the type of things that you're working on now versus what you did then? And is that more productive for your business as a whole?
Yeah, so now, my goal or my main role is marketing and sales. So instead of, kind of being in the mix of everything and doing the day to day, we don't have management to do that now.
Yep.
And, with my business particularly, we have production and our retail stores. So essentially like four managers kind of, have a handle on that. So the minute I gave them, some responsibility, and they were happy to jump up to and take on these roles. So they're in charge of labor, they're in charge of call outs, they're in charge of, keeping our costs down. With We do a scorecard every week. Yeah, so it's more of a one-on-one strategy and consulting instead
Mhm.
of being actually in the mix of things. And I think it's also made the team stronger as well because they have a
Yep.
leader to look up to at each location, so they can
Yep.
someone to go to, and they're in not always texting their frazzled boss about,
Oh, that is
uh,
awesome. That's awesome. Well,
yeah,
I'm
so it works
awesome that
great.
it's not like that anymore. Uh, So okay, awesome. So we talked about that. We know some of the wins there. So tell me some of the other major wins that happened working with us. I know there's some financial changes that happened. Yeah, and just give me some insight into that.
Yeah, so with us being a bakery and coffee shop, one of the first things we evaluated was our cost of goods sold. So the actual our suppliers and our ingredients that we were using. And with being so busy, if you're working in the business, you're not paying attention to what brand of almond flour you're using or how much waste is going into that. So being able to take a step back and look at these ingredients, hey, we can switch to this one and it cuts in half, or hey, this is a better
Wow.
quality. So, I mean, pretty immediately we switched brands and suppliers for two main ingredients, which weekly that's thousands of dollars that would be
Yeah.
previously we would be, wasting, honestly. So,
Yeah.
and I mean that was a big when you're growing from two to three locations really quickly, every
Yeah.
dollar counts, every percentage point counts. So if
Yeah.
we wouldn't have switched, we'd be in a really tough position. We'd be spending, still 30-40% on
Yeah.
our cost of goods, and now reducing that down to we're below 20% most weeks. So yeah, that's a huge percentage jump there. Just by honestly just paying attention and switching some ingredients. It's great.
Yeah. And I think the way that when people say that, it's like, oh, it sounds so simple. But I think the key is, yes, fundamentally it's simple, but what's different is that you have to create the time to do those type of things, and you have to create time to be a business owner instead of being a business operator. I think that's one of the key distinctions. So, in total, when we were talking before, we were crunching the numbers, and so that saves you about $12,000 a month between your locations.
Yeah, absolutely. More than that, I mean, it's definitely just making those simple changes with the supplier and the ingredients has been huge. So, and also the labor costs with the
Mm.
managers being, they're in charge of keeping it below certain percentages. They're in charge of looking at last month or last year's sales and kind of doing their own evaluation.
Yep.
So having that in check has really helped, with labor hours and just keeping it all in line.
Yeah. So now you can basically just focus on, okay, how do I get more sales? How do I grow more? How do I focus on that end of the business? Because you know that once you increase the volume, your costs are going to stay the same. The quality is going to be there. I mean, that just must feel amazing to be able to have a business now that you have the operational side working the way you wanted to, and now you can just pour more gas on the fire and grow it from there.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing too is my background is not in restaurant management; it's in
Mhm.
business. So it's definitely a huge. I think if we would have stayed on the same path with what I was doing and trying to be everything all the time, I would be in a very tough financial spot right
Yeah.
now. Trying to grow so quickly, but also not having the capacity and time to really look at these things. So it would. Things happen for a reason. It's definitely perfect timing at that point. Perfect time in the business to do something like this. So.
Yeah.
I'm really excited about that. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. So I want to switch over to Andrew. So, and you've been working with Autumn the whole time. So I want to get your perspective. What are some of the key things that stands out to you about Autumn's journey?
So the one thing that I really proud of is the speed of execution, and that doesn't happen unless you can trust the process. So she was trying to crunch numbers, right? She was trying to reduce her costs, and often there's a limiting belief that you do have to be working all those hours in order to have those savings. And she trusted the process, she trusted the coaching, and went ahead and put those leaders in place and was able to create a structure that inevitably cut her labor in half,
Yeah.
while reducing her hours in the business. So things like that, I think trusting the process and just getting on it quickly, like the execution, whether it was the marketing strategy that we put in place within 4 weeks to help maintain, the construction project and the reduction in sales there, but also the labor and the cogs, anything that was advice, she just executed on it quickly, which means she got to those savings a lot faster.
So I wanna stop here. So because most people don't believe this can happen, but what happened is you actually put people in place, paying them more, reduced your hours in the business, and actually lowered the labor costs. So I wanted to point that out because most people don't think that can happen, but here it is. This
I
is
have to say, there was one week where I did work open to close, I think 5 days. So we were open 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. So that's 13 hours. And I
yeah.
went to look at my labor costs because I was like, oh, I saved so much money. And I did not. Actually, not at all. So I was like, this
Yeah.
is kind of a waste. But anyways, yeah, that was a surprise, right?
Yeah, oh, 100%. Because again, I always say this, you can't make 100 grand a year working for $10 an hour or whatever, I mean,
Mhm.
depending on what your wages are, maybe that's 15, maybe that's 20, depending. But you know what I mean? Like you can't make those big money decisions when you're just trying to save an hour, which is really only worth that, right? So
Mhm.
that's we have to think bigger and make those bigger decisions. So sorry, Ange, I didn't mean to cut you off. I just really wanted to point that out because it's something I hear all the time. Is there anything else you wanted to mention about Autumn's journey?
No, I think with that speed of execution, like she said, she was able to actually spend the time doing the marketing and the things that,
Yep.
business management is what she loves, what she went to school for. That's, kind of why she got into business in the first place. So to be able to see her do the things that she's more passionate about as well, and not having the stress of restaurant management allowed our time to be so much more efficient because of that, right? We got there really quick because of her, like I said, trusting the process and putting those people in place. So yeah.
Awesome. Oh, that's amazing. So, Autumn, I got two questions for you. So, number one, what would you say to someone who is sitting there, who is working open to close, who's not making the type of money they want, who's not really happy with the way things are going, but they want to open more locations someday? And they're sitting here, listening to this, who is this Andrew guy? Who is this ownership, company? Like, what would you say for someone sitting in your same shoes months ago before you started? Now, having gone through it, what would you say to that person?
Sure. So, the biggest thing is for a lot of us in these situations, like, oh, I can't spend the money on something for the business and I don't have the money right now. I barely have money for labor. So how can I afford, or, a
Yep.
program like this? But to be honest, something like this it'll change your business quickly. And it's just putting those like kind of aha moments of things that you wouldn't
Yeah.
didn't it's not that you wouldn't think about but didn't have the capacity and the time to focus on. Having that guided coaching really just you're able to put these things in place and put the right people in place. And also the program is a great program, and these are things that we'll be using, and my managers they're using all of these skills now, so down to hiring, I mean marketing, like everything we're using every single day. So it's definitely it'll change the business for sure. And it will in my case honestly save a location that could have gone under pretty quickly with what we were looking at with our labor and cost of goods. So I definitely think it's an investment in your business, and sometimes it's like the last resort, and you're like, oh, let me just do this, and it made a huge change for mine. So I'm really glad I found you guys at the right time. So
Oh, that's awesome.
yeah.
That's awesome. And I'm just like
Yeah.
looking at numbers here. So, if you've saved 12,000 a month after making these changes, and so over the course of a year, that's, I mean, getting close to 150 grand. I mean, that's like 15 times what you paid us kind of deal. Like it's
Absolutely.
and
Hmm.
even the change of having like that 12K a month, still more than almost double what we charge for a long period of time. And literally with the savings that you've made in 1 month, more than almost doubles that, right? So it's just kind of insane to think about that, where things could be. And so, the most common thing that people tell us is like, hey, if you don't think you can afford it, well, you can't afford not to, because you know
Absolutely. Yeah. Hmm.
if we don't help you make more than what we charge, then you know what are we doing here anyway? So I think that's the key point. So awesome. So what I want to know, what's next for you? What's on the horizon? What are your next goals? Where to after this?
Sure. So, right now we have three locations open within, pretty quickly. So we're looking at, having our everything systems in place and our production in line. Eventually, we're kind of a small chain now.
Yeah.
So we're looking at expanding through franchise, or opening more locations and putting these same things in place, and they're kind of plug and play and ready to go now that we have a
Yeah.
good system. So yeah, a lot of big things. Hopefully we'll see one of our locations in where you guys are in Canada at some point. Yeah,
Awesome. Awesome. I love it. I'm just so proud of you and your journey from where you started to where you are now. I just wanted to make sure, I give a huge shout out to you, and obviously Andrew, working directly with you the whole time. It's amazing for me to sit on this side of it and just to see what's happened. And I'm just so proud of what you've been able to accomplish. I just wanted to thank you so much for taking the time to share that with everyone here. And if they have any questions, where can they find you?
yeah, absolutely. So we're located in Raleigh, North Carolina, in the US, but we're Mon Macaron. We do French macarons and coffee. And yeah, we're at monmacaron.us.
Awesome. Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much for being here. And if you have any questions, let us know. But later, guys.
Thanks.